The postpartum period is a time of immense change, not just for you as a parent, but also for your relationships. Friendships and partnerships can shift in unexpected ways, leading to feelings of isolation, frustration, or disconnection. In this episode, we're going to explore how relationships often change, and I'm going to provide actionable strategies to overcome common challenges and nurture the connections that matter most. Listen, I'm having this conversation not because I was amazing at this. In fact, I am here to say that I probably did terrible in this regard. I don't think that I was the greatest friend in the postpartum period. I don't think that I was the most kind family member. And I may also have been difficult in terms of the relationship between my spouse. And so I'm humbly coming here and I'm saying, I want to help you not have the interactions that I had. I want you to maintain the friendships, the relationships that you had with your family. And so I want you to learn from my mistakes. That's why I'm having this conversation. So the first thing that I want to address are friendships. How do we navigate the shifts? How do we strengthen bonds? How do we prevent bonds from being broken? Parenthood is going to alter your social circles. Some friends are going to step up in a huge way. Others are going to drift away, leaving you feel lonely and misunderstood. I think it's really important to talk about the challenges that exist that really cause these relationships to be fractured. Number one, if you are in the place where most of your friends do not have children, they have not been where you are. And so they're not always able to relate. They're not always able to empathize, and they may not be able to know how to navigate the struggles that you're having or the responsibilities that you're having. I know for me, one of the things that was really difficult in the pregnancy period and postpartum period is that I don't even think that I was aware of the challenges that I was experiencing. I had a lot of mood swings. I had a lot of physical ailments. And so I just was not present. I did not know how to take the help that was being given to me. I did not know how to interact with some friends because I just wanted to be alone, to be honest with you. But the problem with that is I was unable to communicate the things that I was experiencing and also unable to communicate the boundaries or the desire to be left alone. And so a lot of times the people around me, they got the brunt of my feelings. And so I don't want to say that I was offloading the things that I was experiencing, but I was unable to enjoy the friendships in the way that I had enjoyed them before because I had a million things running through my brain. I'm hurting. I'm experiencing issues in my own home. And so I really, really struggled with my friendships, to be honest with you. I just did not have the energy to socialize. And I just felt anxious most times. And so if I was to look back and say, how could I have done things differently? I would say honesty. I think I required more honesty about my needs and my availability. I think I should have been more honest about the fact that I valued my friendship and I valued the people around me and I loved them and appreciated everything that they did for me, but that this time is going to be different because I'm different and undergoing a series of things that I don't even understand myself. And so I wish I could have communicated that, but now I've gone through therapy, right? Because of everything that I've experienced. So I'm able to have conversations that I was not able to have, frankly, when I was pregnant or in the postpartum period, because I did not know how to express myself. And so if I was to look back, I would really work on being honest about the things that I was experiencing and being honest about how I feel so people don't feel that I am not appreciating them, that I am using them as a punching bag, or just not treating them in the way that they deserve or valuing that friendships because I really did. I just was going through so much at that time that I was unable to communicate that. And I really also wish that I could have set boundaries, right? Where if I have a friend that I spoke to 20 times a day, we've all had that friend who you could talk to them literally 5 times a day, right? Texting, calling. And now you're getting into the period where you're postpartum and you can't have those conversations. And so I wish that I could have set these boundaries early on and politely declined invitations. My friends always make fun of me because they wanted to come and visit me and wanted to come and visit the baby. And I told them to come like right after the baby was born. I was like, yes, come, come. And one of my friends told them, was like, guys, I don't think this is a really good idea, but if you guys want to come, I'm just telling you that you may need to stay at my house as a backup. And so I was all for it. I told my friends, come when the baby's born. I'm going to love to have you guys. Literally, when that baby was born and my world was turned upside down, I could not entertain guests. So I had friends come and visit me, and I would not leave my house. I could not leave my house to go and eat breakfast, lunch, have coffee. Had crippling anxiety where I couldn't leave my house. And so my friends flew in to come and be with me. And I could not do it. And to be real with you, I was unable to have that conversation with them to say, guys, like, this is not going to work. And so they flew in. And they stayed and they were here and they came to visit me in the house. But it wasn't that image of me walking the streets with my baby and hanging out with my friends. It was really a different experience. And so luckily my friends now, we look back and we just kind of laugh at that time because we're like, what were you thinking? Inviting us, 3 people to come to the house and basically sleep there and come and hang out with you and the baby. Like I was not in the position to do that. And so if you are me, I really implore you to politely decline invitations because they really may not align with your new priorities. Your new priorities is taking care of baby. Your new priorities may be using your free time to sleep. Your new priorities may be using your free time to get some things done around the house. And so you may not have time to entertain your friends. And so you need to have these conversations. In fact, talk about these things before you deliver. Talk about who's going to visit and at what point. And honestly, I would advise that moms, you really want to make sure that you take your time. You don't have to have guests right away, right? In my culture, people are at the house, they want to help you. But I really wish that I was able to say no more and to put those boundaries in place. Something that could have saved me a lot of stress and also could have probably saved some of those friendships as well. All right, so we talked about communication and being honest. We talked about setting boundaries. And I want to make sure that you are finding new communities. You got to seek out those parent groups. We have this group called Empower Mom, and we have pregnant moms come out and they're mingling, meeting other pregnant moms, they're meeting birth workers. I set this up so that moms are able to build communities before the postpartum period. There's nothing like going through a period of your life with somebody who is going through the same thing. So finding a group, whether it's online, whether it's somebody in person, these people are really going to help you connect. They're going to help you get through similar stages in life. Okay. And you want to make sure that you're planning intentional check-ins with your friends, right? I'm going to say that again. You want to make sure that you're being intentional about checking in with your friend. I know that it feels like everybody should have attention to you right now because you're going through pregnancy, you're going through postpartum, you're going through everything. But there are people who have been there with you through a lot of periods in your life. They have been there with you. They are good friends. You want to make sure that you are pouring into those friendships as much as they have poured into you, right? In order to maintain bonds, it's two-sided. So it may feel like your world is crashing and you may be going through a lot right now. But even if you check in on a friend once every couple of weeks just to say, hey, I miss you. I'm thinking about you. I may not be here for you in the capacity that I have been, but you're on my mind. It means a lot to that person. So let's make sure that our friendships are two-sided, okay? Even if it's just a quick call or a text message. So that's friendships, right? That's one relationship that you are going to have to figure out how to navigate. The next one that I want to talk about is your partner. This is huge. Now, I am divorced, so take what I'm telling you with a grain of salt because I went through immense challenges with my ex-husband during the postpartum period. In fact, it really started during pregnancy. And so I remember when I was pregnant and I was taking a walk, one of my neighbors said, how's it going? You doing okay? And I said, yeah, everything's good. And she said, now I want to tell you something. Do not divorce your husband in that first year. I looked at her, I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you're going to hate him. she's, she's like, you are literally going to turn over, look at him when you're sleeping, and you are going to despise him. Know that that is normal. Know that you are not the only woman who's going through that. Do not make any sudden changes while you're going through the postpartum period. And I'm happy for that advice, right? I ended up getting a divorce way later and I wasn't postpartum, but in the postpartum period, I did take that advice because I realized that a lot of the strife that I was having with my ex-husband was because of the changes my body was going through. There was a lot of hormonal things. There was a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of roles that were unestablished, a lot of expectations that were not talked about or met. And so there was a lot of issues that were not established before getting married, before giving birth. And so I'm here today to give you some advice. Okay, because I want you to have strong relationships with your partner. I want you guys to thrive. I want you guys to dance, to have a rhythm, to be helping each other because you both chose to have this child. You both deserve to be happy, to enjoy this period of time. And so you need to be able to have the tools, however, you need to be able to plan because it does not come naturally, right? As women, we are naturally taught to be nurturers, where we are literally given dolls at an early age in life, and we are feeding these dolls, we're changing them, we're taught how to take care of children at a very young age. And boys, on the contrary, are not. In fact, some people may go through their entire life not seeing their mom care for a newborn, not seeing their cousins caring for children. And so you may marry a man who's literally never had any experience with children. And he may have a deep desire to have children, but he has no experience. And some people, they may read some books because that's the type of people they are. But other men just may feel like, let's do this. I love you. We love each other. We have a good thing going. And so let's have these kids and let's make it work. Let's do this. But the reality is, the demands of caring for a newborn can strain even the strongest relationship. The realities of having a newborn can put a relationship that is so strong under stress. Sleep deprivation, hormonal changes, shifting roles, all of this can lead to resentment, misunderstanding, and fights. There's a lot of challenges. Number one, I think division of responsibilities. Let's establish that. Let's talk about that. If you guys were getting married, you probably talked about who's going to pay the bills, who's going to do what, who's going to clean, how are we going 50-50, are we going 75-25? But nobody really is talking about parental roles. So at the end of the day, right, mom, you're going to be breastfeeding. Baby's going to cry in the middle of the night. You're going to have to get up and breastfeed this baby. So what role is your partner going to play in this process? Because you can't assume that he should be doing things. I think for me in my relationship, I would be upset because I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'm feeding the baby and my husband would be snoring. And I'm like, man, why isn't he getting up? Right? Like he could be warming up the bottle or he could be helping me with the diaper. Like, but how is he supposed to know that if we didn't talk about it? We expect our partners to know these things. We feel like that they should be washing the bottles, that they should be changing the nappies, that they should be fluffing our pillows, making us food. They don't know that. And so if you're pregnant right now, or you're thinking about giving birth, or you're even in the postpartum period, I need you to sit your partner down and talk about the division of roles. Because if you don't talk about expectations, you are going to resent this person. And it is really difficult to get out of resentment when you're there. And so let's prevent getting there by talking about who is going to do what. I know some of my clients, they divide the day. They'll say from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is my time. From 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. is my time. So they split the day. Right. But that helps maybe if you are bottle feeding or formula feeding. But if you are solely, exclusively breastfeeding your child, you are feeding the baby. And so, what is the role of your husband or your partner? What role do you want them to play when you are waking up in the middle of the night breastfeeding? And that may look like I'm going to breastfeed the baby, you're going to burp the baby, change the baby, and put the baby back to sleep. And so maybe it looks like I'm breastfeeding baby, you hand over the baby to dad, and you go get some sleep. It could look like that. And during the day, same thing, right? And if he's not there, you're figuring out who else can kind of step in that role. But dads need to be able to have a role. Partners need to be able to have a role. Like I said, people do not have this training, right? Most people are not reading a manual about how to do this. There's a lot of resources out there, but let's face it, you are reading so much in the postpartum period. And so reading about relationship, roles, divisions, all of this stuff about how to navigate relationship challenges and struggles in your marriage may not be what you have capacity for. And so I'm telling you right now, before anything, sit down and talk about who is going to do what, right? And then the second thing that you guys need to talk about is intimacy. Intimacy. If you haven't listened to a prior episode about intimacy, I want you to click back, go back to that and listen to that. People are ready at different times, right? We have this number that we say it's 6 weeks. You should be ready to go. And we tell the spouses, and our spouses are waiting for that 6 weeks magical number. And we are dreading that number because for you, you may not be ready to re-engage in intimacy at 6 weeks. And so that may be very daunting for you. So talk about these things. If I'm not ready to engage in intimacy at 6 weeks, how are we going to navigate this? What are other ways that we can build intimacy and maintain that relationship we have without sex? What are things that we can do? Can we have a date night? Can we connect emotionally? Because when you're sleep deprived, when you're caring for a child, you are literally not thinking how to bond emotionally with your partner. And that can really isolate them. And they just may not be in the best place. And so that's what ends up happening in the relationship is that people feel disconnected from each other because all the energy has shifted to the baby. But remember, before the baby, it was you two. And so this is something that you cannot neglect. Okay. So we talked about setting roles, dividing roles. We talked about the sexual intimacy. Now, the third thing that we really need to address is the difference in parenting styles. Okay. You didn't know your husband was a yeller? You didn't know your wife yells? Okay. Well, how are we going to do this, right? Somebody may be like, nope, he needs to leave him alone. Let him cry. And this person over here maybe say, no, like I can't just let him cry. That could be a huge problem. If you want to hold your baby and no matter what, and make sure that they don't cry, and your husband or your wife feels like this is like, I absolutely, we need to let this baby cry it out. and that's not something you talked about, that can really cause issues. And in fact, talk about parenting styles now, because it's going to be issues as you go on to having more kids and your kids getting older. Hopefully this conversation is happening before you even get married, because these things typically don't change. If one person believes in corporal punishment or spanking their kids and you don't believe in that, and now here you are married, that can really cause a lot of issues in the relationship. So these are conversations you really should have. So now that we've talked about the challenges and how to overcome them, I want to talk about, now that we've talked about the challenges that a lot of couples face, which is uneven division of roles and responsibilities, a lack of time, intimacy, emotional connection, and the differences in parenting styles, I want to talk about the strategies about how to overcome. Okay. Number one, communication. Just like I talked about with friendships, it is really important for you to communicate with your spouse. You need to be able to share your feelings. You need to be able to share your expectations regularly. I feel that I'm very overwhelmed. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling not ready. Really use I. Okay. Don't talk about the other person. Don't say, you're not paying any attention to me. You are not doing this. You are not helping. You are not. All of these can really isolate your partner and make them feel bad. So let's use I statements. I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. And I wonder if there's a way that we can tackle feeding the baby, trying to make sure that we can get through this in a way that I'm not feeling overwhelmed, right? I'm feeling like I'm not emotionally connected with you. And here's some things that I feel like we can do in order to get through this period of time. I think that we can do differently when it comes to feeding the baby, waking up in the middle of the night, all of this. You want to make sure that you're able to communicate in a way that is not going to cause more issues or resentment. And then you want to talk about sharing responsibilities. Divide equitably. Obviously, your spouse may not be able to breastfeed, right? So we can't expect them to go, we can't expect 50-50 on the feeding part because they're unable to do it, right? And so talk about if I breastfeed, then maybe you can do this. If I'm waking up in the middle of the night, let's talk about maybe during the day, this is what you're doing. So really talk about how to do this. And you need to create a schedule. I cannot emphasize this enough. A schedule for feeding, especially if you're bottle feeding or formula feeding, a schedule for who's doing the chores. Let me tell you something. My spouse constantly complained about the house being a mess. I did not have mental capacity in those first few weeks to clean my house, right? In retrospect, a house cleaner could have resolved a lot of things. So if you do have the disposable cash to be able to get somebody to help you clean the house or get somebody to cater your meals, this is important, especially if your spouse is accustomed to you cleaning and you cooking. You want to make sure that you guys have this conversation. Listen, I'm going to be in this period of time. I'm not going to be able to make every meal for you. I'm not going to be able to clean the house. So let's talk about maybe getting some catering. Let's talk about getting additional help. Have these conversations, make a schedule. If you are able to purchase my book, What to Expect Next, I have scheduling on there. I have conversations that you can have with your partner. Do all of these things before you deliver the baby so that you may be ready for that postpartum period. Okay. So communicate openly, share responsibilities. Number three, make time for each other. Schedule that date night, put it in the schedule, even if it's going down to the gas station and getting some Fanta orange, right? Even if it's going around the neighborhood and taking a walk, spend time with each other. Okay. Put the baby to sleep, have somebody watch the baby, go on a walk, go in the car. I know you're tired, mom. I know you're tired, but even 15 minutes to reconnect or connect with your spouse makes all the more difference. You and your partner came before this relationship. Do not neglect it. Okay. And lastly, I want you all to seek support. Do not hesitate to start with couples therapy. Yes, another thing while you're pregnant, another thing while you're postpartum. If there's any gaps or any fractures in your relationship before you give birth or have a baby, it will get worse. It will. So you want to get a couples therapist as soon as possible. This is really important, especially before tensions get high, because once those tensions get high and there's resentment, it's just really hard to get out of that cycle. Okay. So we've talked about friendships, we've talked about relationships with your spouse. I have to tackle this one, y'all. Family dynamics. Family dynamics. How can we set boundaries and expectations? Mm, mm, mm. Family members can be a huge source of stress, okay? Depending on who it is. However, some family members can be a huge source of support. You got to know who is who. If you have a mother who is a problem, and you know that they are going to be highly critical of your choices in the postpartum period, maybe not have them around initially. If you have a mother who's been supportive with you, supportive with your marriage, who is somebody that you know is going to be a huge help, bring them in, have them help you. But you need to be able to know who is who. You need to be able to give people boundaries. Now is not the time to be shy when you have concerns. You need to tell people exactly what you need from them and what you don't need from them. I had my mother-in-law come and stay with me for 6 months, y'all. 6 whole months. I had my mother-in-law stay with me. Bless her heart. It was difficult. It was difficult because I was not only taking care of my child, I was trying to manage the home, trying to do all these things. And I also had an elderly mother-in-law who was really unable to help me in the way that I thought that she would. And she was highly critical of everything, right? I struggled with breastfeeding and I really wanted to breastfeed. And so I would pump like a maniac. I was depressed over this, and her words were not supportive in any way, right? She was not supportive to my journey. In fact, she would mock me and tell me about how her breasts could feed an entire village and about how she was able to do so much with her breasts. And so that was really hurtful for me. She said a lot of hurtful things in the postpartum period. I mean, we got through this and I forgave her, but if I had to do it again, I would have spoke up more, and I would have asked my husband to send her home a little bit sooner than 6 months, because I felt like that relationship was being harmed as a result of her being there. So just really wish that I had set boundaries, right? Because it was just so much strife there. And the relationship with my mother-in-law also affected the relationship with my husband. And so set the boundaries, okay? You can politely and firmly communicate your preferences and needs about visitations, about caregiving, about care for the child. Oh my gosh, right? I don't know if some of you are from different cultures, but there are different cultural practices that your family may want to do that you may not agree with, right? Giving water to the baby, feeding the baby at 1 month, 2 months. I'm telling you, there's some crazy things out there, and these may not align with you. And you have to be able to firmly, politely say, that is not what we are going to do. I would like to not do that, but thank you for the suggestion. You have to practice these things, okay? Really important. Number two, I want you to be able to delegate wisely. Everybody needs a task. Do this before you deliver. Do this early in the postpartum period. People are going to want to help you. You have lots of people who want to help you. They want you to thrive, but they don't know how. You're going to need help cleaning. Say, hey, like if you know somebody or if you can help me clean the house from time to time, you're going to need help cooking. Hey, if you can set up a meal train for me, or if you can drop off some meals, that would really help me. You're going to need help with babysitting. That 15-minute date night that you need, you're going to need help. And so give people tasks. If you have family members who live nearby, give them tasks. If you want people to come in the house and help you during the postpartum period, set this up. Do this now, because You want to minimize things being haphazard. You want to minimize conflict in the postpartum period, okay? And then just honestly, at the end of the day, just limit your interactions. There's no need for you to have 20 people in and out of your home. Enjoy this moment. Work on trying to figure this out with your partner if you have one. Take the help, but limit how many people you have. It's just too much people management. You may be a people person, but this may be overwhelming and it could really just get you into some issues with family members that you don't want to have. Okay. And at the end of the day, just remember that a lot of these people are not trying to stress you. They actually want to help, and it can be overbearing. And so yes, be firm with your boundaries, but also just take the opportunity to appreciate them. Tell them you appreciate the help that they're giving you. Tell them you appreciate their concern. Let them know that you understand the place that it's coming from, and then gently decline. This is not what works best for us. This is what works best for me. This is how I would like to do things right now. Be polite. Okay, because you'll need these people at a later time. You don't want to fracture these relationships. Okay. All right. So these are the three relationships I thought we could explore, right? So your friendships, your relationship with your spouse, and your relationships with the family members. Okay. And I want to end on a note. It is important to connect with all these individuals in your life, but it's also really important to reconnect with yourself. Reconnecting with yourself is the foundation for stronger relationships with anybody. If you are not in tune with your own needs, if you are not spending time trying to reconnect with yourself, taking care of yourself, it is really, really hard to pour into your friendships, really, really hard to pour into your marriage, really, really hard to pour into the relationships with your family. You are going to get burnt out quickly. So take the time. Don't feel guilty about needing to step away from the baby and take care of yourself. Okay? You want to really, really try to prioritize yourself. How can you do this? Schedule time for activities, for a walk, journaling, a relaxing bath, seeking help. Okay? Ask your partner to help you. Ask the postpartum doula to help you. Create time for yourself. Reconnect with your passions. Hey, you love running, right? When you get cleared, maybe start with some walking, a jog, and maybe get back into just doing one jog a week. Whatever brings you pleasure in life, do not neglect that part of you. Self-care is not selfish. It is essential for your well-being and the ability to nurture other people, including your child. Okay? So the postpartum period is a season of transformation, and it's normal for relationships to evolve during this time. With open communication, intentional effort, and support, you can strengthen the bonds that matter most and navigate challenges with grace. I want to ask you to follow this podcast if you haven't already. Subscribe, like, give me 5 stars, because we are going to have a lot of information here, a lot of insights for you to navigate postpartum life. It's time for us to start talking about it. It's time for us to stop being reactive. It's time for us to be proactive. Everybody here deserves to thrive in the postpartum period. If you need additional resources, I want you to pick up the phone, call me 1-800-265-6689, or email me. I want you to email me at fourthtrimestervoices@gmail.com. I'm here for you. I can sit down. I can help you go through this, make a postpartum plan so that you may be able to conquer the postpartum period. You can do this. You can thrive. You can have wonderful friendships. You can have a wonderful marriage. You can have a wonderful support system who respects your boundaries, who trusts you, and who is there for you when you need it the most. We can do this together. All right. If you have any questions, again, reach out to me. And this has been another episode of Fourth Trimester Voices. Take care. If you live in the Atlanta, Georgia area, I want you to consider working with EM Care to You. And this is my concierge medical company, and we offer comprehensive care for mothers postpartum. I started the company because I saw a need. I was taking care of so many postpartum moms that had a need, and I wanted to provide a solution for their problem. So at EM Care to You, we provide access to in-home lactation support, pelvic floor physical therapy, mental health support, and more. You can learn more about this at emcaretouYou.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fourth Trimester Voices. If you have any questions about today's episode or you want to share your story, please email us at fourthtrimestervoices@gmail.com. My name is Dr. Choa, and it's been lovely talking with you all today. Take care.